What happens when the most electrifying player in the history of women's basketball suddenly can't hit the ocean from the shore? What happens when the franchise that was supposed to dominate this league starts crumbling from the inside out, not because of a lack of talent, but because of everything surrounding it? Right now in Indiana, something is going very, very wrong. And nobody in the mainstream media wants to tell you the full story. They'll sugarcoat it. They'll call it growing pains. They'll tell you to be patient, but patience doesn't win championships. Execution does, health does, trust does. And right now, the Indiana Fever are running dangerously low on all three. This isn't just a story about a shooting slump. This is a story about a back injury that keeps getting swept under the rug. A sideline argument that went viral and exposed cracks nobody wanted to see. A veteran all-star who packed her bags and walked away after just 9 games. And a coaching staff that might be actively holding back the most talented player on the planet. So buckle in, because we're about to break down every single layer of the chaos unfolding inside the Indiana Fever, layer by layer, fact by fact, with zero sugarcoating and zero apologies. Let's start with the numbers, because the numbers don't care about narratives. The numbers don't care about hype. And right now, the numbers surrounding Caitlin Clark's shooting are absolutely brutal. In Clark's last 8 WNBA games, she has made just 9 of 58 three-point attempts. Think about that for a second. That works out to just 15.5% from beyond the arc. This is a player who rewrote the record books at Iowa. She made more three-pointers than any player in NCAA history throughout her college career, and she continued that hot shooting at the professional level, setting a rookie record for the most made three-pointers in a season. That Caitlin Clark, the one who pulled up from the logo with absolute confidence, the one who made defenders question their entire defensive scheme, that version of her has seemingly vanished. In her last 2 games alone, she went 4 for 19 and scored a season-low 6 points in a loss to Portland. While there is still time to get back to her offensive form, the frustration is clearly visible. Clark even crashed out on referee decisions and earned a couple of technical fouls in just 8 games. Now, here's why this matters so much more than just a cold streak. Clark's entire game revolves around the three-pointer as she shoots from beyond the arc at high volume and from long distances. In turn, the Fever offense relies heavily on Clark's deep shooting, as her ability to stretch the court and draw attention from opposing defenses opens things up for other players. When she's knocking down threes, the whole floor opens up. Driving lanes appear. Kick-out passes become lethal. The pick-and-roll game between her and Aliyah Boston becomes virtually unguardable. But when that shot isn't falling, the entire mathematical equation of the offense collapses. Defenses stop pressing out. They pack the paint. They dare her to shoot, and right now she's proving them right for daring. Her 2026 stats sit at 20.1 points, 8.1 assists, and 4 rebounds on 39% shooting and 33% from 3. Her season has started with a shooting slump, and the Fever have stumbled to a 4-4 record, including a loss to Portland in which the Fire relentlessly targeted her as an isolation defender. But here's the thing that makes this even more fascinating. Even with the shot completely broken, the basketball genius is still there. She is clearly the most talented player on the roster. Consider for a moment that even with the walls caving in on her, Clark leads in scoring while leading the league in assists. The Fever offense falls off a cliff when she sits and performs at an all-time level when she's on the court. She's still dishing 9 assists against the Liberty, 8 against the Dream, 8 against the Valkyries. She's still the most dangerous point guard on the planet when the ball is in her hands. She still sees passes that nobody else on earth can see. But 9 assists and 10 points in a crucial home loss? That's like having a Ferrari engine inside a car with 4 flat tires. The potential is screaming at you, but the execution just isn't there. And when you zoom out and look at the pattern, 4 games, 5 games, now 8 games of this, you start to wonder if this isn't just a cold stretch. You start to wonder if something deeper is going on. And that brings us to the part of this story that nobody wants to talk about directly. Caitlin Clark's back is a problem, a real one, and the way the Indiana Fever have handled it has been, to put it bluntly, a mess. During the season opener against the Dallas Wings, she went back to the locker room multiple times, sparking worries over a new or lingering injury. After the game, Clark and head coach Stephanie White revealed she was getting her back adjusted. It gets out of line pretty quickly, so just getting my back put back in place a little bit. But other than that, I feel great, Clark said. Sounds reassuring, right? Except White admitted that it would be an ongoing thing to make sure hip and rib alignment was taken care of. An ongoing thing. Game 1 of a 44-game season, and they're already using that kind of language. You don't need in-game adjustments to a back that gets out of line pretty quickly if your body or mechanics are working properly. And for a player whose entire offensive identity is built on the kinetic chain of a deep three-point shot, legs, through the core, up through the release, a compromised back isn't just an inconvenience. It's a potential catastrophe. It explains the flat arc. It explains the rhythm disruption. It explains why a player who was hitting 44% from three early in the season suddenly looked like she'd never shot a basketball before. Then came the Portland game on May 20th, and this is where the situation got truly ugly. Clark was inactive for the game after being a late scratch due to what White described as back soreness. There has been a lot of discussion about the Fever's handling of Clark's status, specifically because she wasn't included in the pregame injury report until the last moment. The WNBA officially warned the Indiana Fever over the injury designation of their star guard. Clark was ruled out due to a back injury 2 hours before the contest, in a move that opened the team up to potential punishment from the league. The league literally had to step in and slap the Fever on the wrist for how they handled the situation. That's not a good look. That's not how a championship organization operates. And the messaging from the coaching staff only made things worse. Ahead of the contest, White denied the team was using load management to rest Clark, but also downplayed the injury. So which is it? She's healthy, or it's a back issue? Because those are two very different things, and the way this organization keeps contradicting itself is raising red flags everywhere. Clark, to her credit, has been honest about the mental toll this is taking. She said the hardest part of injury is the mental hump of getting over everything. She said she now understands her body almost too well, to a point where she's become hyper-cautious about certain things. That right there is one of the most revealing quotes any athlete has given this season. She's telling you that the injuries have fundamentally changed how she approaches the game. She's telling you she's playing with a mental governor on her engine. She wants to go full speed, but her body keeps whispering caution. And when you pair that psychological burden with a back that literally goes out of alignment during games, you start to understand why the shot isn't falling. She even admitted there are moments where she still struggles and gets in her head. Remember, Clark missed 31 games in 2025 while dealing with multiple injuries. That's not something you just walk away from mentally. The body remembers trauma. The mind remembers pain. And when you're out there on the court trying to pull up from 28 feet, and somewhere in the back of your brain there's a voice saying, "Protect yourself," you hesitate, even for a fraction of a second. And in professional basketball, a fraction of a second is the difference between a swish and a brick. But the physical struggles are only part of the story, because the relationship between the franchise player and her head coach has started showing very public cracks. This next part went absolutely viral. The Caitlin Clark-Stephanie White exchange sent shockwaves through the basketball world. The superstar guard and the Indiana Fever head coach went viral for their heated argument during the team's 184 loss to the Portland Fire. Let's set the scene. The Fever are getting blown out by an expansion team. An expansion team. The Portland Fire are dismantling Indiana on their own floor. And right in the middle of the carnage, the cameras caught something that sent the entire internet into a frenzy. White was addressing the team during a timeout with Clark sitting directly in front of her. White appeared to be making a point, jabbing her finger in the air in Clark's direction while continuing to speak. Clark outstretched her arms to the side before raising them, which looked to mimic a defensive-type position. The two-time All-Star later stood up, moved behind White, and shook her head. The video exploded on social media and prompted a flood of reactions. Some sided with White while others backed Clark. But the argument itself wasn't even the most alarming thing that happened. With 6:30 left in the opening frame, White subbed out Caitlin Clark, Lexi Hull, and Aliyah Boston. Indiana was leading at the time and proceeded to unravel. By the time the quarter ended, Portland led 29-15. Your three best players pulled while you have the lead. And then a 14-point swing. That's the kind of decision that gets coaches fired. That's the kind of decision that tells the entire locker room you care more about your substitution pattern than about winning a basketball game. And then White subbed out Clark for rookie Raven Johnson. Clark got out of her seat and shook her head, clearly frustrated. She finished the game with just 6 points on 1 for 7 shooting from the field and 4 for 5 from the free throw line. 6 points. 22 minutes from the most important player in the entire league. Let that sink in. Analyst Jason Whitlock didn't hold back. He lambasted White while sharing his thoughts on the fiery interaction. In an ex-post, Whitlock claimed that White and Fever defensive assistant Brian January sabotaged Clark with an early substitution against Portland. He went further, stating that in the history of basketball, no superstar player has ever been subbed out after 210 seconds of excellent playmaking. The matchup against the Fire marked the earliest she checked out at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. White previously stated that she was following her typical substitution pattern, but the data contradicts that. Now, obviously, claiming sabotage is a very bold accusation, and it should be treated as exactly that, an opinion, not a fact. But the underlying concern is legitimate. When the data shows that your franchise player has never been pulled that early in any other game this season, and you claim it's routine, the numbers call you out. Clark, to her enormous credit, defended her coach publicly. She said it was just another example of everybody wanting to blow things up and make something out of nothing. She recalled how when she got hurt at a Connecticut game last year, she balled in White's arms and called White someone she will ride for the rest of her life. That's a powerful statement. That's a player who, despite all the frustration, is choosing loyalty. She's choosing to protect the relationship even when the internet is begging her to throw her coach under the bus. White, for her part, said it was simply coaching, challenging a player. She pointed out that it rarely becomes an issue when it happens in men's sports. And you know what? She's got a fair point there. In the NBA, coaches and players get into it on the sideline every single night, and nobody writes a 3,000-word think piece about it. But the difference is context. The difference is that this team is 4-4, the star player is in a historic shooting slump, and the coach's decisions are being questioned on a daily basis. The scrutiny comes with the territory when you're not winning. And as if the coaching drama wasn't enough, the Fever dealt with one of the messiest behind-the-scenes situations in recent WNBA memory. This was supposed to be the move that pushed Indiana over the top. The Fever signed DeWanna Bonner during the offseason on a one-year contract valued at $200,000, bringing in a six-time All-Star and two-time champion to add veteran leadership to a young roster. On paper, it was a home run signing. In reality, it turned into an absolute disaster. She started just 3 of the 9 Fever games she appeared in and averaged 7.1 points, 3.8 rebounds, and 1.6 assists. For context, Bonner averaged in double figures in scoring in each of her 15 previous seasons in the WNBA and had been a full-time starter since 2012. So going from a 15-year double-digit scorer and full-time starter to a bench player averaging 7 points, that's a massive ego hit for a veteran of that caliber. She scored 8 points on 2 of 12 from the field in her first 3 starts, and the Fever were outscored by 16 points in her 62 minutes on the court. Ahead of their 4th game, Bonner was removed from the starting lineup for Lexi Hull. Ongoing lineup changes appeared to bother Bonner, making her uncertain of her role. Then she vanished. Bonner came off the bench for 6 games before leaving the team due to personal reasons. After missing 5 games, reports emerged suggesting Bonner had no interest in returning to the Fever. She reportedly requested a trade, which the Fever tried to accommodate, but no deal materialized. A trade was always going to be difficult to pull off, especially since she was reportedly dictating where she wanted to play, her preferred landing spot being the Phoenix Mercury, where her fiancé Alyssa Thomas currently plays. Eventually, the Indiana Fever waived Bonner. In her own words, she said the fit did not work out. As she nears the end of her career at age 37, Bonner didn't think things would work out the rest of this season in Indiana and even contemplated retirement, according to reports. And here's the deeper question nobody is asking. What does this say about the culture inside that locker room? When a 16-year veteran, a player who has literally seen everything this league has to offer, walks away after 9 games citing vague personal reasons, that's not just a basketball decision. That's a red flag. Fever general manager Amber Cox spoke to the press and stated that Bonner expressed her dissatisfaction early in the season and that equal trade opportunities were sought but no suitable options were found, resulting in Bonner being waived. The Fever replaced her with Ari McDonald, who in 3 games with the Fever while Clark was out with a quad injury averaged 11 points, 3 assists, and 2 steals. McDonald has been solid, but replacing a 6-time All-Stars presence, even if her production was down, is not a one-for-one swap. The leadership void is real, even if the stat sheet doesn't show it. With Bonner gone and the chemistry still shaky, the burden falls squarely on the shoulders of a supporting cast that's been wildly inconsistent. Let's start with the player who absolutely nobody is talking about enough, Monique Billings. This woman put up one of the most efficient performances in Fever history against the Liberty. 6 of 7 from the field, 85.7% shooting, 15 points, 8 rebounds, nearly 35 minutes of physical, bruising action in the paint. That's the highest individual shooting efficiency from any Fever player in any single game this entire season. She was dominant. She was relentless, and her performance was completely wasted because the perimeter players around her couldn't buy a basket. Then there's Kelsey Mitchell, a walking bucket, a fearless competitor who lives for the big moments. She dropped a team-high 21 points against New York, and on the surface that looks like a star doing star things, but look deeper. She shot 7 of 21 from the floor, 33%. She shot 2 of 8 from 3, 25%. She needed 21 shot attempts to get to 21 points. That's an isolation-heavy approach that chokes the offensive flow and burns possessions. When Mitchell goes ISO heavy at that volume, and Clark is simultaneously struggling through 14 shots of her own, and their combined shooting efficiency is under 30% from the field, the math will defeat you every single time. You cannot beat an elite defense like the Liberty with that kind of inefficiency. It's statistically impossible. Aliyah Boston has showcased the talent, force, versatility, and skill to be one of the best young players in the WNBA. But she hasn't put it all together consistently this season. She's one of the most physical, imposing two-way players in the league. She's built her stamina up to be able to play at Clark's breakneck pace, and the duo is virtually impossible to guard in the pick and roll, where Boston's soft hands and softer touch thrive. She finished the Liberty game with 13 points and 9 rebounds, solid numbers. But the question remains whether the coaching staff is integrating her into the offensive flow early enough. Too often, Boston's touches come late in the shot clock or in moments where the possession has already stalled. That's a schematic issue, not a talent issue. And let's not forget about Sophie Cunningham. 2 games before the Liberty loss, she was a plus 11, instrumental in a crucial win over the Atlanta Dream. Against New York, minus 18 in just 17 minutes. That's one of the worst individual plus-minus metrics recorded by any Fever player this entire season. How does an essential rotation piece swing that dramatically in the span of a few days? It speaks to a fundamental inconsistency in how the coaching staff deploys their personnel. When a player's impact swings by nearly 30 points in 2 games, the system around them is the problem, not the player. And on top of all of this, the team ranks second from last in scoring defense at 89 points allowed per game. Clark's defense has become a topic of open discussion as teams have begun to attack her in isolation. In the last 4 games, she has defended 34 isolations, the most by any player over a 4-game span in the past 3 seasons. Opposing teams aren't just running their offense, they're hunting Clark. They're specifically targeting her, again and again and again, knowing that her defensive limitations are the easiest path to easy buckets. And if the coaching staff doesn't find a way to hide her defensively, through schemes, through switches, through creative matchup adjustments, then opponents are going to keep doing it all season long. So where does all of this leave the Fever? Can this team still compete for a championship, or is the window already closing? Let's zoom out and put all of this in perspective. Because the tragedy of what's happening in Indiana right now is the massive gap between what this team could be and what it actually is. The Fever went 24-20 in 2025, finishing 3rd in the Eastern Conference. They lost in the semifinals against the Las Vegas Aces, 3-2. A heartbreaking 5-game series against the defending champions that could have gone either way. Fever also claimed the Commissioner's Cup in 2025 and its $500,000 prize pot. Clark was named team captain for the 2025 All-Star Game after receiving 1,293,526 votes, the most votes in WNBA history. This is a franchise that was ascending. This is a franchise that had the entire basketball world watching, and this season was supposed to be the one where they took the final step. Instead, they're sitting at .500, drowning in controversy and looking more fragile than ever. The Fever are the highest scoring team in the league at 91.8 points per game, and Clark's 20.1 points per game is a career high. The offensive ceiling is there. When this team is clicking, they can outscore anyone in the WNBA. But the team ranks second from last in scoring defense. You can't outscore your own defensive deficiencies forever. At some point, you have to get stops. At some point, you have to play both ends of the floor. And right now, Indiana is the basketball equivalent of a mansion built on a crumbling foundation, gorgeous from the outside, falling apart underneath. The Fever look to become the first team to win consecutive Commissioner's Cup titles. That's the opportunity sitting right in front of them. That's the legacy-defining moment that awaits if they can figure this out. But figuring it out requires honest, uncomfortable conversations. It requires a coaching staff that adapts its schemes to protect its franchise player instead of exposing her. It requires transparent communication about injuries instead of contradictory statements that force the league itself to intervene. It requires a supporting cast that can maintain consistency from game to game instead of swinging wildly between +11 heroics and -18 disasters. And most importantly, it requires Caitlin Clark to find her shot. Because everything else, the passing, the vision, the IQ, the leadership, all of that is still there. The engine is still world class. But an engine without fuel doesn't move. And right now, that 3-point shot is the fuel that makes everything else run. Here's the thing that makes this situation so fascinating and so heartbreaking at the same time. The WNBA has never had a player carry a league on her shoulders the way Clark does. She fills arenas. She breaks viewership records. She sells out stadiums in cities she's never played in before. She became the fastest player in league history to rack up 1,000 points, 250 rebounds, and 250 assists. She holds the record for most assists in a single WNBA game at 19. She is, by every measurable metric, the most impactful player the league has ever seen in terms of cultural reach. But carrying a league and carrying a team are two very different things. And right now, she's being asked to do both with a bad back, a cold shot, a defense that gets hunted every single possession, and a system that might not be fully designed for her to thrive. Clark said it herself, she's not perfect and she knows she's not perfect. Right now they're playing like the .500 team that they are, and she has to look herself in the mirror and find ways to make this team better. That's the kind of accountability that builds champions. But a player taking accountability does not absolve the organization of its failures. The questions about her health, the coaching decisions, the rotation chaos, the Bonner fallout, all of those are still sitting on the table. And they're not going away. The clock is ticking. The schedule is about to get even more brutal. The Commissioner's Cup features a $500,000 prize for the winning team, and Indiana wants to defend that title. But they can't defend anything if they can't fix what's broken. And what's broken isn't just one thing, it's a constellation of issues all colliding at the same time. The shooting slump, the injury mystery, the coaching tension, the roster instability, the defensive nightmare. Each one alone is manageable. All of them together, that's a crisis. And the Indiana Fever are running out of runway before this crisis turns into a full-blown catastrophe. So what do you think is really going on? Is this shooting slump purely mechanical, something that will self-correct with time and reps? Is it the back, a lingering physical issue that nobody wants to admit is more serious than they're letting on? Is it the coaching, a system that refuses to adapt to its best players' strengths? Or is it something deeper, a cultural fracture inside a locker room that lost a veteran leader and gained a whole lot of noise? Drop your take in the comments. I want every theory, every opinion, every angle you've got. And make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit that notification bell, because this story is far from over. The answers have to come soon. And when they do, we'll be the first ones breaking them down raw, honest, and with zero sugarcoating. We'll see you in the next one.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.